Hello all. My name is Ben Lawless, Head of Publishing at Global Legal Group, and the publisher for the Global Legal Insights to Fund Finance. And joining me today is Terry Hatton of MUFG Americas and FFA board member. Terry, good to see you. Thanks for joining me today. If you're happy to, do give us a little bit about your background and how long you've been at the MUFG for.
Sure. Thanks, Ben. And great to see you this morning. And thanks for giving me a call. I head up the North American business here for MUFG Bank. I'm located in New York. We're a global player in the business and I think pretty well known. We have offices in New York, North America, EMEA, APAC, and Tokyo. We do business not only through MUFG Bank, but also through our trust bank, which has a similar footprint and also plays a significant role here in the business. Here at MUFG, we have a large originate to distribute practice, but also work to participate and work collegially alongside the other banks that have a similar remit. We also do a large business in bilateral lines as appropriate within the business itself. MUFG's been in this business for over 20 years at this point in time, in one form or another. And as you mentioned, I also sit on the board of the FFA, have done so for about 10 years now. So that gives me some insight as to what's going on there. And I'd like to mention that we're currently attempting to do a survey amongst the banks, the NBFIs and insurance companies. That survey is going well. We're really trying to put more information and quantification around the industry. I think it'll help the banks with their various regulators and those people who are kind of looking over their shoulder one way or another. We've done an outreach, I guess, to 120 of those institutions in order to collect information.
Brilliant.
And the survey is being performed by the third party Deloitte, just to ensure that the information collected and then collated is properly anonymized. Should any of your followers feel that their bank or their institution may not have been included, they can feel free to reach out directly to the FFA or myself, and we can direct them to the person that received the survey, or we can forward a link to it. So we're hoping to have the survey completed by mid-January, and then we can discuss the results at the February conference.
That sounds great. That sounds brilliant. And I'm sure that we can do something to help at our end towards our audience with that as well. So, excuse me. Thank you, Terry. That's a brilliant intro and some good information there as well for our audience. Absolutely. Moving on to last year, really. I was looking through some of your discussion pieces last year. You were quite confident we'd see more banks moving into the space, some as standalone entities, some as partnerships. You were envisaging an increase in insurance companies, more securitization, and in general, you were really quite bullish and positive for the year ahead, and it appears you were proved right on all counts. Is that how you've seen the year as well?
Well, I guess I was lucky for once in my life. But, and I'd like to say I have a perfect crystal ball, but obviously I don't. In this case, I think I was just able to capitalize on some of the momentum that I perhaps saw in the marketplace at the time. But the past year, it has seen more entrance into the marketplace. And we've seen some of these partnerships that you referenced kind of materializing and being quite effective. Banks, new banks have entered into the marketplace and they're now participating at all levels. Again, both new entrants and banks that are expanding their own remit. We see that not every day, but certainly a number of new entrants over this past year, pardon me. Anyhow, the insurance companies are also busy and stepping up their involvement in the business, and that's created a bit of a boom for the rating agencies. The rating agencies appear to me to be busier than ever with both public and private ratings of the transactions that involve this business. With respect to the securitization market, no, honestly, I would have thought the business would potentially be further along than it currently is, but I believe it's going to grow significantly over the next couple of years and be very expansive, provide more liquidity and different solutions for funding. We at the bank here are certainly seeing new deals every week, and the market feels more vibrant and less muted than it did in the last few years. Our own portfolio has expanded once again. I do think that where there's been more term paper originated in the space than we've historically seen, I know that we have distributed a significant amount, with much of it going to the NBFIs and insurance companies. Shorter term paper has also been attractive to some of the banks, and they have taken that up uh, with a real zest, if you will, particularly 3 years and under. Fundraising, I haven't seen the most current stats, but I feel it is somewhat extended still, maybe a little bit muted. I'm sure we'll start to see more information come out as to how the year looked as a whole, and I'm sure it will be. There'll be pockets of positivity and perhaps pockets that are less positive. Fundraising can be vibrant in one area and perhaps less vibrant in, say, the PE area or vice versa, one or the other. I think we've also seen in the past year a lot of continuation vehicles, more than we have typically seen in the past. So those are a few of the things. Yes, and I certainly touched on them last year. So again, I think it was more momentum that I was able to seize upon and capture.
No, that's brilliant. And you might have touched on some of this already, but just sort of globally, can you speak about some of the headwinds, tailwinds you're seeing and sort of summarize how things are shaping up for 2026?
Sure. Look, I do think it's a positive, vibrant market at the time being. I know that some people are disappointed with perhaps rates where they are. They have finally come down after being relatively high for the past couple of years. Um, but maybe I just talk about this in the context of what I see happening in the market. As
Yeah.
mentioned, we see a plethora of deals being rated by the rating agencies, and that's helping new entrants come in. So we see, again, more new entrants into the marketplace in the form of banks, NBFIs, and insurance entrants. Demand is certainly there. I think it's the supply that remains a little low. Um, but some banks also clearly have an insatiable appetite and they're growing their own business. I think, as whether you call it a headwind for some or a tailwind for others, there is a significant amount of demand out there, and people are kind of scrambling to fill their own appetite, fill the buckets that they need to fill out to meet their own goals. The securitization market, that continues to be worked on, and the term loan market continues to develop. So I think those two things we'll see. Um, Again, whether you consider it, some people will consider it a headwind, some people will consider it a tailwind. The performance of the market as a whole continues its strong performance. And when I talk about that, I'm really talking about, this business itself, the capital call business, the lending that goes on there. So those are just a few of the things that kind of are observations that I see.
No, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Terry. And just to sort of move to your role at the FFA, can you give us a bit more detail about how the calendar's looking for 2026?
Sure. The calendar is certainly a busy one and always is. It seems like some of the events are relatively far apart, but they're on top of us before we know it. And there's a significant amount of planning that has to go into each and every one of these. Before I get into some of the things, I'd certainly like to reach out and thank everyone that does get involved in this, from many different areas, from the banks, from the insurance companies, from the rating agencies, from um, the NBFIs. Everyone seems to be providing a contribution, and that contribution is appreciated. We can always use more help. So If any of your listeners are looking to get involved, we have many different committees that you can become involved with and be a part of the FFA. In terms of major events coming up this year, obviously we have the 15th annual Global Fund Finance Symposium. That's at the beginning of February. I actually believe the first date might be January 31st on the Sunday. But if you haven't already got a ticket, get one now. It promises to be a bigger event than in the past, with even greater participation from GPs and LPs. We anticipate well over 2,500 people attending this year. And Ben, I know that you're going to be there and talking to many of the people that show up. In terms of other
Absolutely.
events, super. In terms of other events, we've got the Women in Fund Finance event at the beginning of the conference where there's still some availability. So that's a positive. There will be a conference in Tokyo that is planned for later in May. We have the European conference in June. I believe it's June 24th, and that will take place in London. We have the Leadership Summit in Portugal. That's planned for September 14th through 16th. And then, of course, the Singapore event, which alternates between Singapore and Hong Kong, or has historically done that. That's the first week of November. Again, encourage people to go to our website, get registered to hear about the latest events that are happening, from event gatherings to FFA University, Next Gen, etc. There are many things happening. And in addition, I think we're going to be doing a few things in Manhattan this year, get-togethers where people can renew acquaintances, talk about what's going on in the business, etc. So busy year ahead for sure.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And just with Miami, you mentioned anticipating over 2,500. Is that expected to be record numbers for the event?
We definitely think that it will be a larger number than we've seen in the past, and we've seen that growth. It can't be exponential every year, but that growth has certainly been on a climbing curve year after year. At some point, it's got to get a little bit linear, but we are expecting growth again this year. Again, I want to stress that we're going to see more GPs at the conference this year, and I know for a fact that we'll have more limited partners attending the conference. One of the things we ask of people, ask of the banks, is to reach out to the people that you're doing business with and encourage them to come to the conference. It's what makes it more vibrant and viable for everybody.
And quite a big hitter for the keynote speaker, I believe, as well.
Yes, yes. I think we've released that information that Serena Williams will be, in fact, one of the keynote speakers amongst a couple of others.
That's very exciting. Brilliant. And Terry, to move on to the Pink Book as well. Do you mind maybe giving us a bit of information about sort of how you've found the guide useful over the years? It's the biggest edition we've ever had that we're going to publish this year. So it'd be really good to get your thoughts on how the guide helps you.
Sure. Well, and I appreciate you bringing it up. Look, the Pink Book, and sorry, not only do I appreciate you bringing it up, I appreciate the sort of advance copy that you sent to me so that I could look at some of it and talk knowledgeably about it. But the Pink Book's been a staple in our market year after year. I continue to say to particularly our younger folks, it's not something to be missed. But more than that, it's not just the younger folks, it's everyone. Okay. It's everyone because the articles are germane, they're on target, they're insightful. They provide readers of all levels with insight as to what's happening real time in today's market. The articles are written in a very easy to follow format by practitioners within the industry that make themselves available at the conferences. It's something that everyone should be reviewing. One of the greatest things that I like about the Pink Book now is that it's online. So when you're flying to the conference or flying home from the conference, you can easily download the information, review it at that point in time. As I say, I want to stress that the articles are great because it's what's happening real time out in the market, whether it's talking about rated feeder notes or whether it's talking about continuation vehicles. All of it is great information. I know, Ben, you'll be there busily handling out copies, and I know people they've got like a special spot on their wall for year after year pink books. Again, I'd encourage people to look at it online. It's just a little easier to carry.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, as you say, we'll be there in Miami, and even later in the year as well. You know, we'll be at the London event, and we'll have copies at Singapore as well. So, yeah, you know, we'll be there for people to grab copies without doubt. Um, well, look, Terry, that's been brilliant. I really appreciate you jumping on a call with me today, and you know, I do look forward to seeing you in Miami, and you know, continued success for the industry in 2026 as well.
Great. Well, Ben, thanks very much for your time this morning. Thanks very much for reaching out. Great to talk to you. Again, I'm looking forward to getting copies of the Pink Book for members of our own team. So,
Good stuff. Thanks, Terry. All the best.
okay, we'll see you soon.
Take care. Bye bye.